Konnichiwa, Pakusetachi. I'm Puppy-Sensei, the Puppy Girl Japanese teacher VTuber of Irium US. I make Japanese language content to help you level up your abilities. Today we're going to be covering the ba yokatta form, which essentially means something like, it would have been better if we had done something. Maybe it would have been better if I had gotten this episode out on Wednesday as planned, but it didn't happen. There's actually quite a lot that we can do with the conditional ba form. The ba yokatta form is only one of many grammatical points that will be used in conjunction with the idea of something would be better if, right? That's what we're getting from the conditional ba. It basically serves as if this. What generally makes ba yokatta specifically more interesting and a bit special is the fact that the yokatta here is effectively a past tense adjectival form. And that means that we're going to need to be a little bit mindful of when and how we use it. Let's take a look. We see here our little grammar card, and we can tell that in order to use this ba yokatta form, we first need to convert our verb into the conditional ba form. So what does that actually mean? Well, the ba form of any verb is the form of that verb that implies something along the lines of, if I were to do that verb. That's where we're getting the idea of conditional from, if this, right? And so we see some examples of these conditional ba forms in the verbs that I'm showing here. Taberu would become tabereba. That means something like if I were to eat, right? So that's the verb to eat converted into the ba form, if I eat. Nomeba means something like if I were to drink. Benkyou suru is coming from the irregular suru verb, and suru ends up getting conjugated as sureba. Sureba. That's the conditional ba form of suru. So benkyou sureba means if I study. Maybe something like if I study, I'll get a good grade or something like that. In a future lesson, I'm going to be devoting considerably more time to conjugating these verbs into the conditional ba form. I'll show you lots of different ways that you can do that. But here, for today, I just want you to know the basics that you need to know if you want to make the ba form of any basic verb. So let's do that together. For ichidan verbs, that's most verbs like taberu that end in ru, not all verbs that end in ru, but for our purposes today, let's just say if a verb ends in ru, we're going to change that ru to a re, and then we're going to add ba. Now honestly, that's basically true for almost all verbs. What we're really looking for in this conditional ba form is making an e-ba sound. That e-ba sound is what we need to form the conditional. So it just so happens that ru verbs are going to drop their ru and add re to get that e sound and then add ba, right? They'll basically become reba verbs. So basically, since we're only really caring about that last u sound, we really just want to convert that u sound to an e sound and then add ba. To do that, basically in any case where a verb ends in ru, we want to change the ru to a re sound, and then we're done, right? So taberu becomes tabereba. Tsukuru becomes tsukureba. Neru becomes nereba. Now, for godan verbs, that's most verbs that do not end in ru. I'm oversimplifying, but that's fine for our purposes today. Essentially, we just want to change the final u sound, whatever that sound is, whatever part of any hiragana that is, we want to take that u sound and make it an e sound, and then we add ba. So actually, godan verbs are pretty easy to deal with in this conditional ba form. Just as we saw in the ichidan verbs, godan verbs are basically just looking for an eba sound, right? So more or less, it's just as easy. A verb like yomu, which means to read, becomes yomeba. The mu becomes a me, and we get yomeba if I were to read. Hanasu becomes hanaseba. The su becomes se, and then we get hanaseba if I talk. Asobu becomes asobeba ですね. The bu is becoming a be sound, right? And then we get this idea of if I were to play maybe some scary video game since it's Dogtober. Again, we really only care about creating that ba sound. That's the only thing we have to worry about. Change the final vowel sound to an sound and add ba. Well, let's look at our irregulars. This is one case where our irregular verbs really aren't that irregular. Remember, there are only two Japanese irregular verbs, and they are suru and kuru. And actually here, we're following the exact same rules that we saw in an ichidan verb. We're just taking that final ru sound and converting it to a re sound. Suru becomes sureba. Kuru becomes kureba. Easy, easy. From ru to re and add ba. There you go. No mess. Very simple. Okay, so technically you could also have the ba conditional forms for things like negative verbs and also adjectives as well. But as I said, I really don't want to get too deep into the woods today because I know that I'll be covering that ba form as a conjugation form sometime in a future grammar drop. So we'll deal with that when the time comes. But for today, I'd just like to focus on forming the ba form of these really basic verbs and then exploring what is implied by ba yokatta. So let's look at some example sentences. This example sentence is Asa bedo ni ireba yokatta. Asa bedo ni ireba yokatta. This sentence means it would have been better if I had just stayed in bed this morning. I never should have gotten out of bed in the first place. Maybe you're having a really bad day. Now, this sentence is just fine the way it is. It ends in ba yokatta, which effectively means that it's ending in a past tense adjective. The use of a past tense adjective is basically saying that this sentence is a past tense sentence, right? I wish that I had stayed in bed this morning. I am currently in the state of wishing that I had done something in the past. That's what we're getting from the ba yokatta. That is a past tense. So I wish that I had, past tense, stayed in bed this morning. I wish I never got out of bed in the first place. So it's a little bit strange. The tense of that is kind of both present tense, I am wishing, but also past tense at the same time. It's I wish something had gone differently in the past. Yeah? Okay, so we're ending in a past tense adjective, and that adjective is scoping over the action of getting out of bed. And that's okay in Japanese. You don't need anything else to form a sentence. You can stop with this past tense adjective, right? Ba yokatta is a perfectly valid way to end your sentence if you're speaking casually. But what if you wanted to make a polite sentence? In that case, all you have to do is add des to the end, and you're done. It's that easy. Adding des is all that you need to do. So this sentence becomes Asa bedo ni ireba yokatta desu. Remember, the tense of this sentence is already reflected in the conjugation of the adjective, right? Your action here, not getting out of bed, is subsumed in the ba yokatta. That is where you're getting the past tense, right? I should have just stayed in bed. In fact, that des that we've added to the end, which converts this into a polite sentence, really cannot be conjugated into the past tense. You can't take des here and turn it into deshita because ba yokatta is already past tense. And so turning this into a deshita sentence kind of would be agrammatical. I know it seems like you should be able to make a sentence that said, I had wished that I had stayed in bed, but it just gets too complicated. So, alright, let's look at another quick example. クラスの前にノートを買っておけばよかった。クラスの前にノートを買っておけばよかった。In this case, we're actually conjugating the auxiliary verb oku. What we're seeing in this complex verb is kao, which is the verb to buy, kao ですね. Kaou has been converted into the te form. So kao becomes katte in the te form. And it's in the te form because it needs to be in the te form to take the auxiliary verb oku. And that forms te oku. Te oku is a grammatical form that means to do something ahead of time for your future convenience. In other words, to prepare something beforehand. That te oku form is conjugated into an eba form, so it can take ba yokatta, right? So the thing that's actually taking the eba here is oku, the auxiliary verb. So what we're seeing is that the whole thing, the whole verbal unit here is katte okeba yokatta. Katte okeba yokatta. It would have been good to buy ahead of time. As we can see from this example, the ba yokatta form can be used to convey a time period at which it would have been a good idea to have already accomplished something. You should have already done something by this specific time. Think of it kind of like a deadline or a time limit, right? And ba yokatta is kind of conveying, in conjunction with that time period, a time at which you really should have done the thing. It would have been better if you had accomplished it by that time. That time here is being marked with the particle ni in kurasu no mae ni, before class. Okay? The whole sentence then is kurasu no mae ni noto o katte okeba yokatta. You should have bought a notebook before class began. Another thing that we can do is to add the noni compound particle form to the end of ba yokatta. In doing so, we create a sentence with additional emphasis. Typically, noni can appear in a sentence to mean something like something happens in spite of something else, or I really wish that something had happened this way instead of that way. But when we use it with the ba yokatta form, as in ba yokatta no ni, the addition of the noni really emphasizes how badly one just wishes that things had gone differently. So we can look at an example sentence, right? Sensei wa watashi to onaji you ni kakoi ni nareba yokatta no ni to omotte iru. Sensei wa watashi to onaji you ni kakoi ni nareba yokatta no ni to omotte iru. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on in this sentence, so I'd like to take a look very carefully. Sensei is the subject of our sentence. Note in this case that sensei is doing both of these verbs. There are two verbal forms in this sentence. It's both omotteiru, to think or to wish, and kakoi ni naru, to become cool, right? Kakoi ni naru, to become cool. Note that that is kind of in the past tense. Not here, ni naru is not in the past tense, but in our sentence, kakoi ni nareba yokatta is past tense. Became cool, past tense. And so sensei didn't become cool, but sensei is still the focus of both of these verbs. Sensei is the focus of omotteru because sensei is the one thinking, and sensei is also the focus of kakoi ni nareba yokatta no ni. Desu ne? To have become cool. Now, we're going to talk about how technically there are two people doing that verb, right? Technically, watashi to onaji you ni kakoi ni naru. To become as cool as me, right? There is a me here who did become cool, but sensei did not become cool, right? So the watashi here is just doing one thing. Watashi wa kakoi ni naru. I became cool in this sentence. But sensei wa watashi to onaji you ni kakoi ni nareba yokatta no ni to omotteiru really means like sensei just wishes that she could have become as cool as I did, right? The ni here is kind of expressing the idea of being something to the same degree or a similar level as something else, as in watashi to onaji you ni. to the same level as me, to that degree. Kakkoi is coolness. In English, we would say this is the same amount of coolness as me, or as cool as me, something like that, right? And now that verb is naru, and as I said before, that means to become. In this ba yokatta form, this is nakereba yokatta, right? It would have been good to have become. But that didn't happen. And we don't really have a negative here. We just have kind of the desire that it would have been better if that had happened. As I said before, noni is providing additional emphasis. It's really driving home how much Sensei just wishes that she could have done this verb. And our sentence ends with to omotteiru. On the surface level, we could translate that as is thinking, but really I think this is more the idea of conveying one's thoughts. The to here is quotative, so these thoughts or wishes are being expressed. In this case, we might want to translate to omotteiru as Sensei knows or Sensei wishes. So I'm hoping that that was a clear enough explanation, but just so that we're all completely on the same page, one more thing that I wanted to do is to kind of show you specifically in the sentence where each individual segment of the sentence kind of ends up lying, right? So if we start with sensei wa, well, that's the topic of the sentence. That's just sensei. So we can connect these two, right? Watashi to onaji yoni kind of pairs up with the same degree as me, to the same level as me. This is kind of a literal translation, but watashi to onaji yoni, the same level as I am. Like, get on my level. そういうことです。かっこいいになればよかった。Would have been good to become as cool as me, right? The as me part is what we get from the 私と同じようにですね, right? And so all of that together, 私と同じようにかっこいいになればよかった would be could become as cool to the same degree as me, which didn't happen as we established. Noni is just adding emphasis, right? So it really just kind of gives us this idea that Sensei really wishes that this could happen. It didn't. To omotteiru is that wishing part, that thinking part. She wishes that this had happened, but it didn't. And we know that it didn't because it's being emphasized in that noni kind of particle. Hopefully that helps to break this down a little bit and helps you understand it a little better. So let's look very quickly at what we're going to be covering next time. We'll go to our wheel of grammar. We're going to spin it and we're going to see what we get. And the result is hazuganai. Okay, so we'll cover hazuganai next time, and I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully I can actually get it out on time for once. All my videos have been late recently. Hontou ni moshiwake gozaimasen. I'm sorry. Struggle. The struggle. It's a struggle. VTuber scuff. I got all the VTuber scuff. Anyway, moving on. I'll see you next time. Mata raishu!
Also, it would make me really happy if you would check out jinxedgaming.com. If you're into zero-calorie gaming fuel and Oshi cups, you will love their products. Puppy-Sensei recommends the tangy strawberry flavor. It's so yummy. Remember to use code SENSEI at checkout for 10% off your order. Can't wait to see you next time. Mata ne!